Dr. John Chumo is the CEO of Mama Doing Good. Good morning, Daktari.
Good morning.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Asante sana.
It's good to have you here.
Yes.
That's the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Thank you.
You'll tell us what Mama Doing Good is all about, who's Mama and what good is Mama doing. But to welcome you to the conversation, CT has the day's proverb.
Yes, our proverbs for the whole of this week come from the country of Gabon, otherwise known officially as the Gabonese Republic. What comes out of the mouth has lost its master.
What comes out of the mouth has lost its master.
Yes.
Dr. Chumo, when you hear this proverb, what's your interpretation of it?
Thank you. It actually means that probably whatever that comes out of ourselves, once it's outside there, it's no longer yours. And therefore it is for the rest of the people. And therefore you need to guard whatever that comes out of you.
Ikitoka imeenda.
Imeenda.
That's a good one, CT.
It is a very good one.
Yeah?
And it's a very good interpretation.
Very good one.
Yes, it is.
Now, what is Mama Doing Good?
Thank you so much. Mama Doing Good, as it sounds, is Mama. As we all know, it's about passion, it's about Mama, it's about compassionate and love. Mama Doing Good is an initiative of Excellency, the First Lady of the Republic of Kenya, Mama Rachel Ruto. We know, being the First Lady of the Republic, she's not new. She has been doing a lot of things for the last over 20 years, and more so on matters to do with table banking, which are actually women financial inclusion, and ensuring that women are actually brought on board in terms of women economic empowerment. Also on matters to do with environment and climate action. You are aware that as it were, the women, you cannot talk about empowerment without talking about cross-cutting issues, and one of it is actually climate change, and therefore one of the areas or pillars is what we call the environment climate action, ensuring that we do conservation for the purpose of mitigating climate change. And then the other one is fair diplomacy. We are aware that the basic unit of a family, of a society, is family, and therefore through faith, we would be able to reach as many as possible and actually try to ensure that the family values are actually adhered to, because as you are aware that as we move on, we are actually losing the grip of families. The families are actually becoming more endangered in terms of what's happening, and therefore through faith diplomacy, we have we endeavor to ensure that the families are actually brought together through awareness creation, through meeting people and meeting the families, the youth, the family setup, the schools, and then also matters to do with youth mentoring and also talent expressions.
Okay. Yeah. We'll focus our attention on environment and climate action because of what's going on right now, the Africa Climate Summit. Yeah. But before we get there, this faith diplomacy is quite interesting. Yeah. What exactly is Mama Doing Good doing with faith diplomacy? We heard something about, Mama is championing for employment of faith people in every ministry, every department.
I think I would want to say that, as I said, that coming from the perspective of our society at the moment, as I said about the issue of the families, Our Excellency, we are talking about faith diplomacy in the sense that and when we say faith, it's not only Christianity as many people think. It is actually across all the, the religion groups that we have in this country. And if you look at any religion, it actually professes that families are supposed to be the basic unit, and that's where all of us come from. And therefore, through this, it's just, we believe, or rather, through this initiative, we believe that when we can actually be able to bring on board the families, we bring on board we build the families, then we know we build the society. There are many things that we are discussing today. I'm sure issues to do with LGBTQ and all that. Things in Africa, for example, we were not even supposed even to talk or even to come out of our tongue. But then now it is an issue because we have actually left our society community. We have left our families to such kind of a thing, and
So,
therefore,
Dr. So what are you doing with faith? Are you praying for people? What do you do?
mean, through this, arrangement, we would be able to go to schools, go to churches. We also have arrangements with the Muslims and all, because it is cutting across.
To do what though? I think that's my question here. To say, okay, going to schools, visiting schools, visiting places of work. To do what? What would be the agenda?
I mean, I would say, for example, there are many arrangements in schools, for example, that we would be able to have the religious. I mean, in any school, there's chaplaincy, and if you look at that, there's always a curriculum that is actually given out there by even the Ministry of Education, which is allowed, and through the kind of interactions, we would be able to bring, and through the spiritual perspective, the students, for example, would be able to understand, because it is whatever, everything we are actually talking about, it is either in Quran, it is also in our Bibles, and it's just about the issue of what you call the family values, the issue of giving, being humble, and those kind of things.
I still don't get it, Dr. Chumo.
Yeah.
So you're CEO of Mama Doing Good. One of the projects is faith diplomacy. Are you saying that you send people to schools?
No, it is not only that.
Give me an activity.
I've just talked about one. But when you go to schools, through that faith diplomacy as a structure, we still also have many other programs, like, for example, Mercy Works. Like, assuming, look at, for example, the other day, we had, for example, the drought, which I think I'm going to talk so much about it when it comes to matters climate change.
Yes.
And we were able to go around there are vulnerable groups. We have, for example, the communities across our country. We were the other day, for example, in Marsabit. We were in places like Marikat. We were actually in Kitui when we had the serious drought. And everybody was called. And through Mama Doing Good, we were able to, whatever we could actually get in terms of, food, we were able to give them. So those are the things in terms of compassion. One of the virtues of, or rather values of Mama Doing Good is compassion. And therefore, under that pillar of faith diplomacy, we actually endeavor to ensure that we would be able to reach as many people in terms of also assisting people. There are issues like, for example, even food, what you call mama feeding, where, for example, we also go to schools and actually ensure that vulnerable schools like in Gibra, like in some places in West Pokot and all that, who would really need some food. And actually through these are the kind of things that we do under Mama Doing Good, faith diplomacy. It's not only praying. There are many other things that we do. I've also talked about the youth mentoring. And in youth mentoring, it means we go to we walk around with the communities. We walk around with the schools and any other arrangement or any other setup to ensure that we profess and ensure that our people get whatever we can actually be able to give them in a matter of Mama Doing Good, love and actually compassionate. So the issue of probably, employing people to pray, I think that is taking a joke too far.
Oh, so that wasn't the truth.
I mean, surely.
That you don't want to
surely,
have.
You can't employ people to do that.
But
even me personally, as a person, I would also pray, but I don't need to be employed to go and pray.
In Kericho, they gives somebody 100,000 shillings, is it?
Yeah.
To pray for the people who died in the Londiani.
Somebody was paid 100,000.
That is not right.
Okay.
Because we say Mama Doing Good and doing it the right way.
Yeah.
So that is not the right way. That's not the right way.
Good the right way.
Yes.
So if I understand you to be saying this, Doctor, you're saying that in our country, in our education institutions and in our other institutions, there are, within those institutions, units that purpose to do things that may be for the public good. And that what you want to do is partner with those people to ensure that that good that they're doing is enhanced.
Yes.
And in places within the country, or again within institutions, within schools, where you see there's an absence of that, it's a value proposition. You want to ensure that you help build it and make it something that becomes a normal process in places where people are socially disadvantaged, like you say, as a result of drought, or as a result of some calamity that has befallen them, you will look into ways of ensuring you alleviate these particular issues. Do I get you right? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I get you right in the sense that, first of all, I want to agree with you that you got me right by saying that for us, as an institution and also as people of Kenya, just part of the society, yes, we categorize. There are many people who are actually having issues. I mean, it is a societal problem that everybody, both even journalism, the journalists like you, the media houses, for example, we need to come on board and ensure that everybody, we are actually talking one language to enhance the values. And I think because those values have been actually degraded. If you look at, I've actually mentioned that sometimes we in the past we hear a lot of strikes, for example, we hear drug abuse and all that with the youth. It calls for all of us to ensure that probably we need to actually enhance and actually support the values by actually bringing on board the best things the best practices that we will be able to do, either spiritually or any other support.
Okay. Environment and climate action.
Yes.
It's also one of the pillars of Mama Doing Good.
Yeah.
What are you doing on that one?
Thank you so much. As I said, women economic empowerment is one of the things that Her Excellency the First Lady of the Republic of Kenya has been doing for the last 20 years. I think Mama Rachel Ruto doesn't need so much introduction in terms of matters to do with women economic empowerment. And this is exactly what she did. She began back when she was the spouse of the Member of Parliament. And she became ran through all the way when she became the spouse of the Deputy President, and finally now when she's actually the First Lady of the Republic of Kenya. And therefore, we realize that when you talk about table banking, which is an initiative of financial inclusion, bringing on board the women and actually raising the funds and, at the end of the day, also borrowing. When they get that money, what do they normally do? They actually take the same, resources, go and do other activities. Among them is farming.
Yeah.
And if you look at the currently, like some of them go for dairy farming, crop farming, the poultry or chicken rearing, pig rearing, and many other things. But at the end of the day, we realize that you find that out of this, they face a serious problem. And that problem is climate change. And what is climate change in this case? Climate change is actually a crisis. I mean, you realize that because of the greenhouse gases that are actually emitted through use of the fossil fuels and other human activities, what they would actually be able to do is to bring the issue of global warming by actually creating a skin-like in the atmosphere and actually enhancing the temperatures. And therefore, we realize that there are many crises that comes of it. The drought is one of it, and most of our women face climate crisis in terms of drought. We have just left about 2 or 3 years. We had a serious drought in this country, which has never been experienced in the last 40 years. And we lost a lot of livestock. We lost a lot of crops.
Yep.
Around 5 million people were facing serious, brand of drought. And therefore, in that case, a good number of those people, I would say, are women, children, and people with disability. The others would rather, run to look for something elsewhere. But the women remain in their homes, and they are the ones who feel the hottest part of it. So in this case, we are doing as Mama Doing Good, we have projects. One of it is to ensure that following mitigation, in climate change, there are two things. You are either mitigating or you are either adapting. And in this case, for us to mitigate climate change, then we just follow the issue of tree planting as tree growing as a way of actually mitigating climate change. His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya has talked about 15 billion. As in Mama Doing Good, we say we need to support the 15 billion that needs to be planted within the next 10 years so that we can be able to increase our forest cover from the current 8.83% to 30% by that time. And when we do that, then we actually mitigate climate change. And as Mama Doing Good, we actually committed to plant 500 million trees across the country. And this is actually what you have actually
500
seen.
million.
500 million. Not 50 million. 500 million.
In how long?
And in the next 10 years. Yes. And what we're actually doing is we have many strategies. One of the strategies is, for example, adapting the forests. And I think Our Excellency has actually adopted Kakamega Forest as part of the ways of actually planting the trees. And then the other thing is actually we are working with the schools to do what you call the Mama Fruit Garden, so that every school that we actually work with, and we want to actually target 17 million learners who are actually within the country, so that we plant the trees through what you call fruit arrangement of fruit garden, where we shall be able to have students planting the trees and adopting them. And we want to do the fruit one, like the macadamia, avocados, and the like, so that at the end of the day, you are conserving the environment, and at the same time, you are enhancing food security in this country. So that's actually one of it. And then, by the way, with the women economic empowerment, we are 14,000 groups across the country, and we want to leverage on them, that we can be able to use the 14,000 women groups who are already organized into these groups in the table banking, and those are the people who can be able to really do tree planting across the country. And we are talking about the women.
Yeah.
You know, once the women decides to focus on something, you are sure that the results are going to be there.
Sure. How would you then be able to say, I mean, I'm looking at this 500 million trees, and everybody talks about planting trees now. But then growing trees and sustaining them is a totally different thing from just planting.
You're right.
How then are you going to be able to track this and then see that it's actually done, so that we're actually seeing movement around this? Because the things you mention are extremely important.
And
the things that groups where we look at the burden of care rests on families, units, women, etc., and for Mama Doing Good to say we're going into this sector, it's important that the result actually be seen. So how would you then be able to track and say for sure this is actually being done?
Thank you so much. As I said, we are actually using, one is actually for adopting the forest. If we adopt, for example, Kakamega Forest, you are sure that we are actually partnering with the Kenya Forest Service, Ministry of Environment and Climate Change.
Yeah.
And working with this is actually a government or rather conservative forest. And by the way, to make it right, is that adopting forests in this country is within the law. You can decide yourself and say, for example, that I want to adopt Abadea's forest, and I think that should actually come out clear, because sometimes when you talk about adopting, people say they are going to steal
You're taking
over from the forest. So you just say, because you are supporting Kenya Forest Service.
Yeah.
So when you do that, it goes without saying that we enter into an arrangement with Kenya Forest Service, and therefore to track the trees and to ensure that the trees actually grow to maturity is clear. Number two. Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, number two is that we are actually using the schools. And one of the things that we ensure that we try as much as possible is to ensure that we start with the schools first, which have land. You know, there are some schools which have very little land.
Yeah.
But when you go outside there, they still have many schools with 2 acres, 3 acres, and all that. And we leverage on them by actually using their land, and we ensure that the schools that we start with are actually those ones with, which are actually fenced. So you are sure that working with the Ministry of Environment, working with the Ministry of Education, we can be able to track and actually do monitoring in ensuring that those trees grow. I'm sure all of us went to primary schools, and you remember those days you would be told, this is your tree, and ensure that you adopt it, and every time it is the dry season, you just water. And you see, if you inculcate that kind of understanding, I'm sure we shall be able
among
to
the young children.
And this is actually what we are missing at the adult stage.
A couple of months back, we hosted the wife of the Israeli ambassador to Kenya, who is also in very many things in her own right, but people just look at, okay, she's a spouse of the Israeli ambassador. Yeah. But they were talking about what the Israeli government is doing and helping Kenya, working with the Kenya Forest Service and also the Mama Doing Good initiative on coming up with those fruit gardens and forests. Maybe to mention about that.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think, first of all, I want to appreciate the government of Israel because of they have been a good friend of Kenya for the last 60 years. And all of us are aware that when you go to Israel, for example, we know it's more of a desert. But all in all, when you see our supermarkets, they are full of some of the products that come from there, especially the fruits and even some of the, even the tomatoes and even some milk. Also, you find way from Israel, and that tells us that as a country, we can be able to borrow a lot from Israel because 80% of our country is an arid and semi-arid, and therefore that is why we think that we can really do a lot of because they don't depend on rain. They what you call rain-fed agriculture. They go in terms of irrigation, and therefore those are the technologies that we really need to borrow from them. And coming to the spouse of the ambassador of Israel, by the way, we were working with that because we have a partnership between the embassy and also Mama Doing Good, and there's also a tripartite with the Kenya Forest Service, and one of it is just to ensure that they assist us as part of, achieving the 500 million trees that we said. And one we chose, we are working across the country, but one that we have actually already started with is to work with the Machakos County. Okay. That Machakos decided, agreed with us to actually give some land for purposes of growing the trees. And what we did was to find out, or rather to agree with the Machakos County, because they are also ensuring that they do what you call urban forestry. Like, for example, the way we have Karura Forest here, they also want to create another one, which is actually next to their town or their city. And therefore, one of the ways is to put up part of the land, and then we grow trees together. And through us, with the embassy, we are actually going to do some good number of trees within Machakos County, in particular around the town. And this is just one of the ways that we are actually saying that we need to reach the 15 billion. And we cannot reach 15 billion, but we need other partners. And in this case, Israelis are actually good friends of us.
When you have reached the point where you feel that what you had set out to do has been achieved, what will we see?
As a country, I mean, we have talked about the 15. What is the mission and what is the dream of His Excellency the President, Dr. William Ruto? One of it, if you look at this, the big plan, the manifesto of Kenya Kwanza, is to ensure that there is prosperity. And in this case, to ensure that we, the people of Kenya, enjoy what we are actually doing, especially in terms of agriculture, in terms of environment, in terms of water, and this kind of a thing. And one of it, to reach that, we are talking about increasing our forest cover. When we increase our forest cover, we mitigate climate change. And therefore, we are going to enhance food security in this country. We are going to ensure that we live a happy life, because effects of climate change, for real, Eric, you will agree with me that for the last 10 years, as a country, we have really experienced a lot. Look at, for example, the drought that I've just mentioned. How many people lost livelihoods? How many, just go across here in Kitengela, and you would actually see a lot of carcasses of livestock. And somebody in Kajiado depends on livestock. And when that actually, when he loses that kind of 100 cows, for example, the livelihood is actually gone. Okay. When we go, for example, to parts of Eldoret or Wasingishu and North Rift, where we know it is actually the basket of this country, then you realize that with that effect of drought, we actually experience a lot of big loss. We were able now to start having a calling government to look for food from outside, and that actually interferes with our economy. And actually, as a result, we want to see also the other effect actually which has also come is about the diseases. Like climate change has actually caused serious upsurge of even some diseases that were not there before. Nairobi, for example, here, we didn't expect to have malaria because we knew malaria is actually a disease that is normally found, or rather affects people along the lowlands. Like, for example, maybe like areas like coastal region, and even probably maybe along Lake Victoria region. But currently, you realize, for example, that because of the global warming, and this is actually climate change, as it were, we are now experiencing even serious malaria and some even funny, mosquitoes. You are told, for example, there are mosquitoes that have actually, mutated from what it used to be to something else. And this is actually one of, it is very serious. And again, I'm talking about the issue of drought. You realize, for example, that our children, for example, there was a lot of good statistics showing that because of the drought, children left school because they could not. They started now, fending for themselves. Yeah. We had problems of water levels. Some of the rivers that we used to depend on went so low to an extent that they were not even able to drive turbines to create, to produce power, and therefore, actually, as we continue seeing effects of climate change, we really need to do something. And that something is actually, one of it is actually doing tree growing. And I say tree growing and not tree planting. Because in the past, we have done tree planting. That's why we were not making any step ahead.
You talk about these things, and that is indeed, and I think that was my next question, because some of the things you've talked about indeed are real challenges. Yeah. And as we look at that, I mean, this is a climate year, everybody's talking, meeting, convening. But then one of the calls is that for, as much as we are coming together as countries, especially in Africa, that one of the calls is that for people on at a micro stage, do what they need to do to mitigate these effects. And so Mama Doing Good getting involved in these areas, apart from the tree growing and planting, because you've established already that there are communities that have seen the effects. They've seen that, their sources for energy have been depleting over the years. They've seen that they cannot go to the river to get water anymore because, number one, it's contaminated, or the river has dried up. The drought was bad. People could not water or feed their animals. So at that level, across the country, because you said Mama Doing Good is across the country, what is being done for people to actually, first of all, understand the reasons why this is happening in order to get them to act, to change, or to reverse the effects of climate change on the environment?
Thank you so much. I agree with you that before even you start planting, there should be actually awareness creation. And I want to say that there is continued awareness on matters to do with climate change, and also matters to do with the adaptation and mitigation of the same. Because I think through the media, through the schools, through the Ministry of Environment, through everybody, and we are actually part and parcel of that. And we are not also leaving the non-state actors, because I think in this country, we also have, NGOs who are actually doing the same in ensuring that awareness is created. And I think for now, we are there as a country. Because if you go anywhere, whether you are in Homa Bay, or for example you are in Marsabit, or where you are in Samburu, somebody is they're already realizing that it's no longer a myth. It's no longer a boardroom affair. It's no longer academic. It is an issue, because you realize, for example, you are in a place, they say in the last, for example, maybe this much in terms of the rain, it has actually reduced. You come from a place when you were young and taking care of our cows. We knew, for example, by 3 you'll be able to see rain. I mean, you'll feel you'll start seeing the wind, and then clouds collecting, and within a short time you see rain. But and it was actually coming from a specific direction. Yes. But nowadays, wherever you are, it can come from east, west. You can even just stay there and probably just eat some. Those are the kind of things we are talking about. The other thing is about the issue of when it comes to the issue of water levels. Look at, for example, River Yala, for example, River Nzoia, even Tana River. It has actually gone that low, and that's actually an example that there is something terribly wrong, and that the issue of awareness creation on matters to do with climate change. Even the older people at the village, they might not be calling it climate change, but they'll tell you there's something wrong with the environment in the language that they understand. And therefore, as Mama Doing Good, we actually try as much as possible to endeavor to actually reach to them through creation, like the way we are today, and also through schools and through churches, through meetings and seminars and conferences. But more so, we don't want even to still go to march on conferences and boardroom. We are actually going to the ground to ensure that the 14,000 women groups that are actually within the 47 counties ensures that we would be able to reach closer to the people. And that's actually where we can be able to leverage on them and actually bring awareness, because those groups, they meet every Monday, for example, or once in a week, and through their meetings they can be able to pass more awareness. So the issue of awareness is not a big issue in this country. I think what we actually need to do, we have talked so much,
is action.
We need action.
Let's
and actually that
action.
is actually from the national government all the way to the county.
Let's talk action.
And no wonder we are here today.
As Mama Doing Good, how many trees have you planted so far in schools?
For the last because we began, this is the year for the last 1 year, because we less than
so let's say
year.
from January,
the
last 9 months, the last 8 months.
Yes, we are talking about 1 million.
1 million trees.
Yes.
In schools.
Yes,
this is a 1 million fruit trees.
Yes,
in how many schools?
So far, we are actually doing in across the country. I mean, that 1 million is actually inclusive, because those are not fruit gardens.
Okay.
They are part of the schools also do
other trees as well.
trees within.
How many fruit gardens are we talking about?
So far we are at 50.
50 fruit gardens.
Yes, and then we in the next 1 or 2 months, because we already the problem was actually getting the seedlings. But we have arrangement. We have a strategy, and when I come back in the next 2 months, we shall have done.
What is
much.
the strategy?
The strategy is that we have already worked with the Kenya Forest KEFRI and Kenya Forest Service, and we are already working with the ministry to ensure that we now we start the nurseries regionally.
Yes.
So that we can be able to also give the students, and also ensure that they can, because the challenge has been, you go to some place, they don't have the seedlings.
Yeah.
And this is actually the thing that even the government has now come on board also through Kenya Forest Service and KFS to ensure that we invest a lot in actually establishing the nurseries.
So these nurseries that now you're doing, are they being set up in schools? Are they being set up by private farmers, or are they being set up by KFS and KEFRI?
We are doing 3-pronged. One is actually working with the women groups. The same women groups will be able to supply the trees to the nearest schools.
Okay.
Then the other thing is, again, we are also getting students, or other schools, coming up with nurseries. We are going to, for example, to every county, we are going to establish what we call a model nursery. And we're working with FAO to ensure that we have a model nursery with many trees that we are going to plant that will supply the surrounding.
Okay.
And then, and ensure that even a school, as it were, can be able to have a nursery.
Okay. Yeah. How is Mama Doing Good funded?
Yes. That's a good question. This is just a foundation. And being a foundation, the support, I've talked about the issue of we have our women. The funding comes from what we do with the issue of table banking, the other thing of the development partners here.
The funding for Mama Doing Good comes from the proceeds of table banking around the country.
This is what I would say. If you look at the groups that we have, the activities that they do, women themselves, out of whatever they do in terms of table banking, there is also proceeds that come out of that. And whatever they do, that comes out of it is actually structured in a way that it is actually plowed back to what they do. That's one of the streams.
Okay.
Number two is actually the issue of friends. Because development partners would be able to get Eric, who would be generous enough to say that they want to support something on maybe tree planting, and you actually give trees, and you can say you want to support some nursery development or establishment, or for example, you would want to, for example, support transiting of women from use of the biomass to clean cooking.
So those are donations.
Yeah, donations.
So those are the two sources of income.
Yes.
Just again to be clear.
Yeah.
Mama Doing Good is a foundation.
Yes.
Registered as a foundation.
Yes.
Not an office established under the presidency. It's not getting public
I mean,
funding at all.
You know, Office of the First Lady in any country is not. You won't say, for example, that it is funded. I mean, you know, if it's an office itself of Excellency, being an institution within the presidency, has obviously the support of from Exchequer for the office, but not when it comes to the issue of programs.
Okay.
Programs in anywhere, even if you look at any other, Office of the First Lady is complementary. They are not given development any funds to ensure that they compete with the other ministries. They complement. You complementary. That means they get support from friends and using the goodwill
of others.
Yes.
As a foundation.
As a foundation.
So, for example, Dr. Chumo is paid by the foundation.
Yes.
Is employed by the foundation.
Yes.
Paid by the foundation.
Yes.
Mama Doing Good is then also audited independently.
Yes.
Is not subject to auditing by the Auditor General.
It's not. It's not a
state office.
It's not a state office. Yes.
Okay.
In the year 2000, from the year 2001 to 2022, in Kenya we lost the equivalent of 11% of our forest cover.
Yes.
Now, 1.8 billion trees would more or less give us 10%, meaning we'll be able to recover 10% of that. Now, we have Kenya Forest Services, we have the research arm, we have schools, we have the ministry, we have the women groups. Now, what stops Mama Doing Good from working with the Ministry of Education so that when you talk about trees, it becomes part and parcel of our curriculum, so that it is actually something that you do? If children understand this need as children, right from primary school, imagine when they get to secondary school and they already understand this thinking. Imagine what they will do when they go to their homes. You will find children with projects. The CBC children go home with projects. I haven't heard of children going home with projects to plant trees or to plant things. Now imagine if this was part of what was inculcated in the youth. Because this forest cover wasn't lost in a day, and to regain it, it also won't be regained in a day. Ancient creatures like myself aren't really a good target. People who are young, who have the future ahead of them, will be the people who realize this dream.
That is extremely right, because and that's actually what we are doing as Mama Doing Good, to ensure that we actually reach as much as possible to the schools, to the children, because we believe when you work with the children, when you actually expose children to matters to do with the conservation, then you get it right. Because these are people who are actually very young, and they would still actually understand that when they plant trees, they're actually doing it for the sake of this country and for their sake, because the future is theirs. The future is actually lies on what we do for the next generation. We always say that this world we inherited from our children. Not from our forefathers and foremothers. We inherited from the children. And that's why we are saying that once we leave the space, when we exceed the platform, what will happen is that there is a generation that comes, and that generation that bequeathed us the space should be able to get it an environment that is actually okay, which is actually has no problem in terms of climate change. And therefore, I agree with you totally that when we start working with the children as early as formative stages in nursery schools and primary schools, and then secondary schools, and then also introduce what you call the curriculum, so that when they are taught, at the same time they practice in terms of planning. Issues to do with, for example, circular economy or waste management. You find, for example, today, all of us, we are adults, but you will find, for example, along the road, you will find somebody driving you eat maybe probably peel off a banana and then you just draw.
Yeah.
You just go straight away, you are eating something, you just do the same.
Mind
and it's
is
just a
on.
whole Eric or say like him. You can imagine what we are actually talking about. This is actually, but if you have if we have a curriculum that has actually been inculcated in the education system, they will tell you this is not right. This is not what you are taught. You remember the children are always, when they come back home, you tell them to do, they say, no, that's not the way you are taught. Even the way we spell things and the way we pronounce, that's not the way we are actually taught. So even the issues of climate, mitigation and adaptation, then we should actually be able to start straight away from as early as, nursery school. And I think I want to agree with you that at least the Ministry of Education and also the Ministry of Environment are working very closely. If you look at the acts, even the Education Act, it has got some aspect of conservation. What you only need to do is just to implement. By the way, on 7th, that will be tomorrow, we are actually launching what you call First Lady's Masingira Award, where, for example, we want to bring on board the children as early as nursery to participate in a competition. Like the way you normally, you are aware that there is competition of music festival, drama, football and the like. We also want to say that let us start having part of the extracurricular activities in our curriculum system, where, for example, we have children who are actually, we say, for example, at the beginning of the year, we give a theme that, for example, write a story in that a composition or an incha about, for example, how to conserve environment. And children are exposed to them. They start, researching. They even start talking with their parents, talking with their brothers, their neighbors, and all that. And they write a good story. Once they write the story, it is actually marked at the school level. Then it goes actually to the sub-county. It goes to the county. It goes to the regional. And finally, it culminates to national. And it is a process for the whole year. If you do that, even for the next 5 years, then that problem of children are being left, outside the conservation will not be there again.
You create a lot of awareness.
So I'm also inviting you tomorrow. We are actually launching it at the, KICC.
Okay.
After
at the First Lady's Pavilion.
Yes, she's going to be the chief guest, and we are expecting the ministers of education and environment and other guests coming to launch this.
Okay. Good initiatives that are being spearheaded here by the Office of the First Lady. Good to understand that it's a foundation. I'd have wanted to know, under foundation, we are running out of time, under foundation, what's the governance structure? Do you have trustees? Are they in place? What's the accountability mechanism? When people are actually contributing and donating towards this, how do they know?
I mean, it is within the structure of any foundation.
Okay.
And it is actually within the law. So all those things are actually done.
Sawa.
But I would maybe if you get time, we'll talk about the African Climate Summit, what we expect.
Okay. We'll come to the end of this particular hour. Thank you very much, Dr. Chumo, for joining us and for telling us the work that you've been doing as the Mama Doing Good, an initiative by the First Lady.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.